What are the best talents for Cao Cao, and should you even be investing in him in the first place? I mean, it's 2021. Yeah, a lot has changed. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, a sponsored content creator for Rise of Kingdoms, and today we've got to review this commander who was once amazing. In fact, he was literally the second legendary that I expertised in Rise of Kingdoms, and man, I hope he's not the second legendary that you expertise, because that would be a huge mistake. If you like Rise of Kingdoms guides that help you get value and smash your enemies, then hey, consider smashing that subscribe button for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. And also, we've got a Discord that is extremely active, discord.gg/Chisgule. Link is in the description of every video, and throw a like on this one. I'd also like to give a huge thank you to Infinite Galaxy for sponsoring this video. Let me show you that game real quick. In Infinite Galaxy, you explore the vastness of space to claim territory, battle fierce foes, and yes, take down other players. In this game, you'll be building a collection of flagships. You'll use those to wage war with your collection of war ships, whether it's the sprightly frigate, the mid-sized destroyer, or the massive cruisers. Your fleet will go head-to-head against opponents in space combat and in the campaign. But it wouldn't be much of a fleet without its crew. Your crew will help define and customize the way that your team works together as you build out the most amazing space station the galaxy has ever seen, building up and constructing things from your headquarters to your military center to make sure you're ready for the next encounter. Along the way, you'll do a ton of research, advancing your space station's capabilities in both situations against players and in situations that help you build up and get stronger. What happens next in this game? Well, my friends, it's entirely up to you. Huge thank you again to Infinite Galaxy for sponsoring this video. I am legitimately obsessed with this game. I've been playing non-stop, powering up. We are in Nebula 13. Nebula 13, we've got a whole bunch of the top ranking alliances, number 1, number 2, number 5, and more, powering up as we speak. You can join us here and have a grand old time. Use the code linked in the description. I'll just tell you, Chisgule Gaming, to get some free stuff as a new player, and be sure to use my link, which will support the channel. Again, a huge thank you to Infinite Galaxy for sponsoring this video, and honestly, I am just having a lot of fun playing this game. Double C. Let's first talk about the context that has changed. Is he worth investing in? Then we'll show you some of the very best builds to use on this commander, and as always, timestamps in the description to jump to whichever portion you're most interested in. Now, Cao Cao is a mobility commander, which has a unique role. He's still really great as a primary commander if what you want to do is run around smashing farmers. The thing is, there's really not that much of that anymore in Rise of Kingdoms. And sure, in the early game, maybe that's a thing you're doing. But late game, no. Not even in KVK is there a lot of that you're going to go and do. And even then, there's epic commanders that do that job, Belisarius and Baibars, that are perfectly fine. So do you need to expertise this commander to get that job done? Not anymore. His role, however, is amplified in game modes like Ark of Osiris. As an Ark carrier, he is a pretty decent choice, but there are so many cavalry commanders you have other options. In addition, he's a Peacekeeper. He's got 50% damage to barbarians, and even that aspect of Double C's role is in fact now duplicated by another legendary commander. Granted, you won't get him for a very long time. Right over here, Moctezuma. But even if you didn't want to go for the legendary Moctezuma, who does have 50% damage to barbarians, we also have other commanders that have made their way into the game like Diao-Chan and Kira, who are phenomenal single target damage and area of effect damage commanders, respectively. So what is Double C's role anyways? He doesn't even have area of effect damage, by the way, which is something that you basically have to be relevant for murder balls in the end game. So Double C, I hate to say it, but I once expertised him literally as my second expertise ever, and now, I don't know. If you're getting him from gold keys, I would just get him from those gold keys and not use a single universal on him. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying that his role is diminished profoundly. And there are so many other commanders I would invest in first. Not to mention the fact that gold key commanders are just really, really expensive to invest in because, yes, you'll have advanced them a whole heck of a lot because you get them from gold keys and you can expertise them for way fewer sculptures. But no, once you've expertised them, every sculpture you get after that point is wasted. I have 857 Cao Cao sculptures, and not only that, I have an absurd amount of gold keys. I mean, that number is probably going to go up by a couple hundred. I have, 2,107 keys? That number could go up by 100 wasted sculptures. Oh, so painful. Now, granted, I made those investments back when there were literally no new commanders being released to the game, but 2021 is so much different. So should you invest in Double C? I don't think so. But if you were just going to slowly work on him over time, and if skill lock hopefully does become a thing in Rise of Kingdoms, the approach I would take is to max the first skill, lock the second skill, and then get your points into these other two. And if you could, you would lock the second skill and the fourth skill so that you could max the first skill, max the third skill. That one is giving you a lot of attack. 30% is great. And 10% march speed. Beautiful. Love that skill. It's doing a lot for you. This fourth skill is great, but just having unlocked it is the majority of what you needed to do there. Yes, it gets better, but it's not so much better with each point that goes into it if you had a limited number of points to apply. In addition, the other problem with this commander is that 25% attack and losing 10% defense? Hello, it's 2021. Hello. Should we maybe get an update to this commander? I mean, that should be gains 45% attack if you're losing 10% defense. Probably, right? It's 2021. So yeah, I think this commander is in many ways outdated, but you're going to get a bunch of him, and he's still going to be better than a lot of epics you're using for some things. Single target damage in particular, Barbarian Forts, he's going to be pretty solid, but if you are going to use him as a primary, that's a curious situation because you're basically using him, I would assume, for the mobility tree. I used to use him as a primary, by the way, to rally Barbarian Forts. But now, Barbarian Forts are so tough, you're not trying to get to the fort faster by virtue of having the extra march speed. No, you're trying to beat the fort by as much as possible because they're so damn hard. And granted, okay, Heroic Anthem and Season of Conquest is changing, and they may be much easier after this patch lands in just a couple days. However, I'm using Minamoto primary these days, not Double C. But if you're using him as the primary, here are some builds that I can recommend. First and foremost, the fastest march speed build in the game. As long as they're not hitting you, which is the downfall of this build, time management will wreck you if you get hit, but as long as they're not hitting you, you'll go very, very fast. Taking advantage of these mobility talents, a whole bunch of march speed in the Peacekeeping tree. You've also got the charge talents for a faster retreat if you get below 50%, some extra march speed in the Cav tree as well. Yeah, this, you can't go any faster, and it's a very solid build. We've got a build for you over here. It's an alternate speed build. This is a little more focused on damage, evasion, and you could theoretically drop some of the points that we put into the cavalry tree over here, and instead opt to put them into something like alacrity and also swiftness, or even go into equestrian excellence, depending on the sort of situation you're looking for. I mention this because there is some amount of flexibility if you're using Double C as your primary commander for the march speed talents that you choose, but the core of the build you can see is primarily the same, with this branch in the cavalry tree, this branch in Peacekeeping, and an arm over here in the mobility tree. Stays about the same, right? Most of that stays the same. Now, there is one other build that is really important for fighting in the open field. If you're actually trying to brawl, not just going somewhere fast, like in Ark of Osiris, but to brawl. And also, if you wanted to see the very fastest builds in the game, I have a card up in the top for some of the fastest, I think, builds and combos if you're trying to go somewhere really, really quickly, especially on a budget. But if you're looking for field fighting talents with Double C, this is the configuration I would recommend. Now, there's a number of things happening here that I think are important to discuss. First of all, we picked up Hasty Departure so that you could get around really, really quickly, going from resource node to resource node. That's a huge part of the attraction of the mobility tree in general. We also got a lot of march speed from this tree, harvesting really almost as much as we could without putting too many more points into there. Theoretically, you could ditch some of these points if you wanted or move some of them around and put a point into Peacekeeping for just 3% march speed too. So you do have some options there, and I wanted to call your attention to it. The majority of the points, however, are all in on the cavalry tree, and we did grab one thing off to the side, Undying Fury. That is 9 rage per second, assuming that you're targeting something and not running away. And that is really, really solid in a situation where also, like, look, if you're not pairing him with a commander that doesn't generate rage, then you are going to need all the extra rage you can get in order to fire off your active skills, especially in a world in which people have the silent trial, reducing your rage. It's great to have this extra little rage boost. If what you're doing, however, is just battling some barbarians, then yeah, this is the build I would recommend off to the side over here. We've gone all the way into the Peacekeeping tree here, picking up the rejuvenating effect of Curing Chant. In addition, we went and we got Trophy Hunter for extra resource value. We put extra points into the Cav tree and the Mobility tree, depending on which you needed, the March Speed or the Punchiness. That would determine where you go first. I'm going to assume it's the Punchiness that you're after, which would send you into the Cavalry tree. The Cavalry tree is where you're going to pick up a little bit of an attack reduction on the enemy. In addition, a little bit of extra rage gen and some punch against archers is quite nice. And the Mobility tree gives you some extra march speed just to kind of round things out. If you wanted, you could theoretically, I guess, shave off the 3 points over here, 1 point over here, 2 points over there. And there are some alternate ways you could get march speed. For example, you could make your way up to this 1 point of march speed over here. It's not quite as much march speed, but the points are better along the way. You could also pick up charge if you think you're going to get low and want a faster trip back home. But this shell or framework for a build is pretty solid and it's straightforward. You're battling barbs. Peacekeeping is the place to start it off. And I'm going to assume that if you're asking about a double C barbing build as a primary, you are lower level, in which case you are going to start in that Peacekeeping tree, getting insight, quick study, make your way to Trophy Hunter, the extra march speed, and then round out this tree for value when you're battling barbarians. I have to say that the pairings are where things get a little weird for Cao Cao. I'm not going to go through literally every pair that you could use with him because there are just so many for barbarians and also for battling players, but I'll highlight a few. There are a few standouts that certainly are worth mentioning. The Minamoto Double C obviously is strong. Khan Double C is really quite good. The attack boost from the Double C gives Khan a lot of punch. And in my KVK Season 1, and I get that my KVK Season 1 was timed a little bit differently than it is for everybody else these days, but in my KVK Season 1, Khan Double C was one of the scariest rallies you could run up against. It was very powerful. So Double C is a strong commander to pair with someone like Khan or with Saladin if what you wanted to do was really great single target damage. And yeah, Saladin is very exceptional for single target damage, generates a lot of rage, which is going to give you a high uptime on the debuff on the first skill of Double C. Other cavalry commanders, however, are not such a great fit, like Attila and Takeda. William, I think, is okay, but let me tell you something. If people see that you're using a Double C in the Altars of Darkness or the Ancient Ruins, I mean, that is just a guarantee that your march is going to get obliterated. So that seems like not the greatest play to me. No, I think those marches we've already covered are really kind of the main marches we would use. I don't know that I could recommend a Chandragupta with Double C. I mean, Double C is decreasing your tankiness in a world in which you want more tankiness. He's not doing AoE in a world in which AoE is more valuable than ever. He is got some march speed, but he's got more cool tricks than he really has raw speed. I think he's just okay at this point. As far as epics go, the standard, I think, you sort of would have expected to pair do work here. Pelagius, great pairing, generates rage and does healing, works well with the Double C for sure. Also, the Baibars pairing is really great for open field combat, especially when you're trying to get away or you want to do some area of effect damage. Baibars Double C, super legit as a combo in the field. In addition, I think Belisarius can be an okay pairing. The reason I just say okay is they're kind of doing the same thing for the most part. They're both mobility commanders. The big difference is that when you break from combat, Belisarius is going to give you a huge boost to march speed, and in that regard, Pairing them up is kind of an interesting idea. You can put them together, break from combat after battling some farmers, and run for dear life because people will definitely hunt you down for doing that. You're not going to make any friends using a combination like that. No, sir. There are other combinations used to gather runes, but like honestly, we don't need to talk about the Dragon Lancer double C combo to go and get a rune. It's really not all that important. I think that double C is a cool commander. I think that his value has diminished over time. I think if they did a rebalancing of some of the original commanders in the game, he would be one that would be worthy of getting a look at. But with that said, I still think he's good for barbing. So yeah, don't use your universals on him. Totally not worth it, in my opinion. Save them for more important projects, and if you're wondering what those are, I'll have a card up in the top for a video where we explain the very best marches in Rise of Kingdoms. And if you're looking for other stuff, we've also got top 4 lists for the top 4 archer, infantry, and cavalry marches. Woof, yeah, those are quite strong too. If you enjoyed this video, throw a like onto here, subscribe, join our Discord, and until next time, you have fun, smash in the kingdom, and leave a comment, even if it's just an F for poor double C.